Taiho stood in the corner of the Grand Hall and tried to be invisible. This was his job. Stand still. Stay quiet. Fetch drinks when someone important needed one. He was good at being invisible. He had 6 months of practice. The diplomatic ship Horizon's Edge was not a place for glory. It was a floating hotel for politicians and generals. Important people came here to shake hands and sign papers. Taiho was not important. He was a cadet, the lowest rank in the United Earth Navy. He was 22 years old and already forgotten dot around him. The Grand Hall buzzed with activity. Human officers in their clean uniforms talked with alien dignitaries from a dozen worlds. Servers carried trays of food and drink. Soft music played from hidden speakers. Everything was designed to make everyone feel comfortable and safe. But Taiho did not feel comfortable. He felt out of place, like a spare part that nobody needed. The Valari Dominion had sent their people to talk peace with humanity. The Valari were tall, very tall. They stood 8 feet high and looked like giant insects. Their bodies were covered in hard shells that glowed with soft colors. Their eyes were large and made of many small parts, like the eyes of a fly. When they looked at you, it felt like they were seeing everything at once. The leader of the Valari group was Admiral Ravan. He was famous across the galaxy. He had won more battles than Taiho could count. He had conquered 12 star systems. His enemies feared his name. His soldiers worshipped him like a god. And right now, Admiral Ravan was bored. Taiho could see it in the way the Admiral stood. His antennae drooped slightly. His claws tapped against his arm. He was listening to a human diplomat talk about trade agreements, and he clearly did not care. Taiho understood that feeling. He had listened to hundreds of these conversations over the past 6 months. They were always the same. Words and more words. Nothing ever happened on the Horizon's Edge. Captain Myray walked past Taiho without looking at him. She was the commanding officer of the ship, a stern woman in her 50s with gray hair and cold eyes. She had never spoken to Taiho directly. He was not worth her time. Taiho sighed quietly and checked the time. 3 more hours until his shift ended. 3 more hours of standing and waiting and being nobody. Then everything changed. A sharp alarm cut through the music. The lights flickered red for a moment. Conversation stopped. Everyone turned to look at the communication officer who had rushed into the hall. The officer was sweating. His face was pale. He ran straight to Captain Myray and whispered something in her ear. Myray's expression did not change, but her body became very still. That small reaction told Taiho that something was very wrong. Admiral Ravan noticed too. He pushed past the diplomats and walked to Myray with long, powerful strides. His voice was deep and clicked like stones hitting together. "What has happened?" Myray hesitated. She looked at the Valari Admiral, then at the crowd of worried faces around her. Finally, she spoke. "There's a distress signal. A Valari cargo convoy. They are under attack by Wraith Raiders. The location is 2 light years from here." The room exploded with noise. The Valari delegates began talking rapidly in their own language. Their antennae waved wildly. Some of them looked angry. Others looked afraid. Admiral Ravan silenced them with a single raised claw. His compound eyes focused on Myray. "How many ships in the convoy?" 7 cargo vessels. 2 escort ships. And the Wraith Force? Unknown. But the escorts already damaged. They estimate they have 30 minutes before the raiders break through. Ravan stood very still. Taiho could see the Admiral's mind working. He was calculating distances, speeds, possibilities. And he was coming to a terrible conclusion. "My fleet is 4 days away," Ravan said slowly. "We cannot reach them in time." Myray nodded. "The Horizon's Edge is the only ship in range. then respond. Go to them. Admiral, I cannot. Murray's voice was flat and final. This vessel has no weapons. We have no fighters. We are a diplomatic ship with 300 civilians on board. If we go to that convoy, we will die alongside them. We will help no one. Ravan's claws clenched so hard that Taiho heard them crack. You ask me to stand here and do nothing? While my people die, I ask you to be realistic. There is nothing we can do. The Grand Hall fell silent. Taiho looked at the Valari Admiral's face. He saw something he did not expect to see. Pain. Deep, terrible pain. Ravan was a warrior who had won 100 battles. And now he was helpless. He could not save his own people. Taiho thought about the convoy. 7 cargo ships. Those were not military vessels. They carried food and medicine and families moving to new colonies. Children were probably on those ships. Parents, grandparents, normal people who just wanted to live their lives. And they were going to die because nobody would help them. Something hot burned in Taiho's chest. He thought about all the tactical simulations he had run at the academy. All the problems he had solved on paper. All the tests where he had been called adequate and average and unremarkable. He thought about his instructors who said he lacked ambition. His classmates who had been promoted while he was sent to this dead-end posting. Everyone who had ever looked past him like he was not there. Then he thought about those people on the convoy. The ones who were counting the minutes until the raiders killed them. Taiho stepped forward. His legs were shaking. His mouth was dry. Every instinct told him to stay quiet and invisible. But he kept walking until he stood before Captain Murray and Admiral Ravan. Admiral, Taiho said. His voice cracked slightly. I have an idea. The silence in the Grand Hall was so thick that Taiho could hear his own heartbeat. Everyone was staring at him. Captain Murray looked at him like he was an insect that had crawled onto her dinner plate. The Valari delegates whispered to each other in confusion. Who was this small human? Why was he speaking? Admiral Ravan tilted his massive head. His compound eyes studied Taiho from top to bottom. The Admiral had looked at enemies this way before he destroyed them. Who are you? Ravan asked. Cadet Taiho, sir. United Earth Navy, a cadet. Ravan said the word slowly, tasting it. The lowest rank among your people. Yes, sir. And you have an idea that your captain does not have? Taiho swallowed hard. He could feel Captain Murray's anger burning into his back. He would pay for this later. But later did not matter if those people died today. I believe I do, sir. Ravan was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was hard to tell with Valari. Speak then. Cadet Taiho, tell me your idea. Taiho turned to the holographic display in the center of the hall. His hands were shaking as he activated it. A map of the star system appeared, showing the convoy's position and the Wraith Raider ships circling like wolves around sheep. The horizon's edge has no weapons, Taiho began. We cannot fight the Wraith. Captain Murray is correct about this. But we have something else. Something the Wraith do not expect. He pointed to 3 large structures mounted on the ship's hull. These are long-range communication arrays. They are designed to broadcast signals across half the galaxy. Diplomatic ships need them to stay in contact with home worlds. Most ships do not carry equipment this powerful. Murray crossed her arms. And how do communication arrays help us fight raiders? We do not fight them, Taiho said. We scare them. The room went quiet again. Ravan leaned forward, his antennae pointing straight at Taiho. Explain. Wraith Raiders are cowards, Taiho continued. They attack weak targets. Cargo ships. Transport vessels. They run away from anything that can fight back. If they see a real war fleet coming, they will not stay and die. They will escape into hyperspace and find easier prey. But there is no war fleet coming, Murray said sharply. The Admiral just told us his ships are 4 days away. The Wraith do not know that. Taiho pulled up technical diagrams on the display. Every ship type has a unique energy signature. When a ship powers up its weapons or engines, it creates a specific pattern that sensors can detect. Our communication arrays are powerful enough to broadcast fake energy signatures. We can make the Wraith think a full Velari battle group is arriving. Lieutenant Jisu, the ship's communications officer, stepped forward. She was a young woman with sharp eyes and quick hands. Taiho had seen her working late nights in the communication center. She was one of the few people on the ship who actually seemed to care about her job. He is right, Jisu said slowly. I can modify the arrays to broadcast false signatures. Velari dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers. To the Wraith sensors, it would look exactly like a real fleet. Myre shook her head. This is insane. What if they do not believe it? What if they attack us instead? Then we die, Taiho admitted. But the convoy dies anyway if we do nothing. At least this way there is a chance. Admiral Ravan made that strange laughing sound again. You would gamble your life on a trick. On a lie? I would gamble my life to save 400 innocent people. Yes, sir. The Velari Admiral studied Taiho for a long time. His compound eyes seemed to look into Taiho's soul. Taiho forced himself to stand straight and meet that gaze. He was terrified. But he would not look away. Your plan has a weakness, Ravan finally said. The Wraith are not stupid. Fake energy signatures might fool their sensors for a moment. But they will quickly realize that no ships are actually appearing. They will know it is a trick. Taiho nodded. That is why we need something else. Something they cannot doubt. And what is that? You, Admiral. Ravan's antennae twitched in surprise. Me? Your voice. Your reputation. Taiho turned to face the Admiral fully. The Wraith know who you are. Everyone in the galaxy knows who you are. Admiral Ravan, the conqueror of 12 systems. The warrior who has never lost a battle. If they hear your voice telling them to run, they will believe the fleet is real. They will not risk facing you. The Grand Hall was completely silent now. Everyone understood what Taiho was asking. He wanted Admiral Ravan, the most feared military commander in Velari history, to use his own legend as a weapon. Ravan did not speak for a very long time. His claws clicked against each other slowly. His compound eyes never left Taiho's face. You asked me the lie, the Admiral said at last. To pretend I have power that I do not have. To use fear instead of strength. I ask you to save your people, sir. By any means necessary. Deception is not the Velari way. We face our enemies with honor. We do not hide behind tricks and illusions. Taiho felt his heart sink. He had failed. The Admiral would refuse, and 400 people would die because of Velari pride. Then Ravan did something unexpected. He turned to his fellow Velari and spoke in their clicking language. The conversation was brief but intense. Some of the delegates looked shocked. Others looked thoughtful. One old Velari, a military officer with scars covering his shell, began to laugh. Ravan turned back to Taiho, and slowly, his mandibles spread apart in what Taiho now recognized as a smile. My people have reminded me of something. Cadet, a truth I had forgotten. The Admiral straightened to his full height. War is not about honor. War is about victory. And victory means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. He placed one heavy claw on Taiho's shoulder. The weight was enormous. I will do as you ask. I will lie. I will deceive. I will use my name as a weapon. His compound eyes glittered with something that might have been respect. You are very bold for a cadet. Just desperate, sir. They are often the same thing. Captain Myra stepped forward. Her face was pale, but she had seen which way the wind was blowing. I will prepare the ship for hyperspace jump. Lieutenant Jisoo began modifying the communication arrays. Jisoo was already running toward the door. Yes, Captain. The Grand Hall erupted into controlled chaos. Officers shouted orders. Technicians scrambled to their stations. The diplomatic party was quickly escorted to safety rooms deep in the ship's core. Taiho stood in the middle of it all, still not quite believing what was happening. 1 hour ago, he had been invisible. Now he had set in motion a desperate plan that would either save hundreds of lives or get everyone killed. Admiral Ravan noticed him standing there. The Valari warrior walked over and spoke quietly, so only Taiho could hear. What happens next, Cadet? If your plan works? Taiho thought about it. I do not know, sir. I did not think that far ahead. Ravan made his laughing sound again. Honest. I like that. He patted Taiho's shoulder with enough force to make the young human stagger. Come to the bridge. You started this. You should see how it ends. The Horizon's Edge powered up its engines and prepared to jump into danger. And Cadet Taiho, the invisible nobody, walked toward the bridge with a legend at his side. The Horizon's Edge dropped out of hyperspace and flew straight into hell. Taiho stood at the back of the bridge and felt his stomach turn. The view screen showed a scene of terrible destruction. 2 Valari escort ships had already been destroyed. Their broken pieces floated through space like dead leaves in water. Fire still burned in some sections where the air had not yet escaped. The convoy itself was scattered and damaged. 7 cargo ships huddled together like frightened animals. Some of them were missing pieces of their hulls. One ship was spinning slowly, completely dead in space. Another was venting atmosphere from a dozen holes. The air escaping in white clouds that froze instantly in the cold of space, and circling around them, like sharks smelling blood, were 3 Wraith Raider ships. The Wraith were nightmares given form. Their ships were long and thin, covered in spikes and blades. They were painted black to blend with the darkness of space. Red lights glowed along their hulls like angry eyes. Damage report on the convoy, Captain Myra ordered. Her voice was calm, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair very tightly. Lieutenant Jisoo worked at her station. The passenger liner Dawn's Hope is in critical condition. They have lost life support on 3 decks. Estimated 400 people on board. They have maybe 15 minutes before those decks become death traps. Taiho felt sick. 400 people. Families. Children. 15 minutes. The Wraith are hailing us, another officer reported. Ignore them, Myra said. Lieutenant Jisoo, are the communication arrays ready? Jisoo's fingers flew across her controls. Almost, Captain. I need 2 more minutes to calibrate the fake signatures. We may not have 2 minutes. Admiral Ravan stood near the front of the bridge, watching the view screen with his compound eyes. He had not spoken since they arrived. His claws hung at his sides. His body was completely still, but Taiho could feel the anger radiating from him like heat from a fire. Those were his people dying out there. His responsibility. His failure. The Wraith are moving, an officer called out. They are approaching our position. On the screen, one of the Raider ships broke away from the convoy and flew toward the Horizon's Edge. It was testing them. Seeing if the diplomatic ship would run away, Myra turned to Jisoo. Lieutenant, we need those signatures now. 60 more seconds, Captain. The calibration is delicate. If I rush it, the frequencies will not match, and the Wraith will know immediately that it is fake. In 60 seconds, that Raider will be in weapons range. I know. Jisoo did not look up from her work. Her face was covered in sweat, but her hands were steady. Trust me. Taiho watched the approaching Raider grow larger on the screen. He could see details now. The weapons mounted on its hull. The observation windows that glowed with sickly green light. He imagined the Wraith crew inside, laughing as they prepared to add another kill to their collection. 30 seconds to weapons range, the tactical officer announced. Taiho's heart was beating so fast he thought it would explode. His plan, his idea. If it failed, everyone on this bridge would die. Everyone on the convoy would die. And it would be his fault. 20 seconds. Admiral Ravan finally moved. He walked to the communication console and stood beside Jisoo. His massive form blocked out half the lights on the bridge. "Is it ready?" he asked. Jisoo hit one final button. A smile crossed her face. "Yes, Admiral. It is ready. 10 seconds to weapons range." "Activate the arrays," Myray commanded. The horizon's edge came alive. 3 massive communication arrays unfolded from the ship's hull like metal flowers. They began broadcasting on every frequency, filling space with fake energy signatures. To any sensor in the region, it would look like a dozen massive warships had just appeared out of nowhere. Volari dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, a full battle fleet. Ready for war. The approaching raider ship stopped. Taiho could imagine the confusion on their bridge. One moment, they were hunting helpless prey. The next moment, an entire fleet had appeared behind them. "Admiral," Jisoo said, "the communication channel is ready for your broadcast." Ravan stepped up to the microphone. He was calm now. The anger was still there, but it was controlled, focused. He was no longer a helpless observer. He was a weapon about to be fired. "Open the channel," he said. His voice echoed across every frequency in the star system. It reached the raider ships, the convoy, and probably dozens of other vessels listening from far away. It was the voice of a conqueror, a legend, a nightmare that had haunted Wraith Raiders for decades. "This is Admiral Ravan of the Volari Dominion." Taiho watched the raider ships on the tactical display. They had stopped moving. He imagined the Wraith captains freezing at their controls, unable to believe what they were hearing. "You have attacked my people. You have killed my warriors. You have spilled Volari blood in my space." Ravan's voice grew harder, colder. This was a mistake. The compound eyes of the Admiral swept across the bridge. They landed on Taiho for just a moment. And in that moment, Taiho saw something new in those alien eyes. Gratitude. "My fleet stands ready behind me. 12 dreadnoughts, 40 destroyers, 200 fighters. More firepower than your entire pathetic confederacy." This was a lie. There was no fleet. There were no dreadnoughts. Just one unarmed diplomatic ship and a communication officer who was very good at her job. But the Wraith did not know that. "You have 30 seconds to leave this system. 30 seconds to run back to whatever hole you crawled out of. If you are still here when I finish counting, I will destroy every one of your ships. I will hunt down every member of your crews. I will burn your families and your homes and your worlds." Admiral Ravan leaned closer to the microphone. His voice dropped to a whisper that was somehow more terrifying than shouting. "You know my name. You know what I have done. You know that I do not make threats. I make promises. And I promise you this. Run now, or you will learn why my enemies call me the end of all things." Silence. Taiho stared at the tactical display. The 3 raider ships hung motionless in space. 5 seconds passed. 10. 15. His plan had failed. They had not believed it. Now they would attack, and everyone would die. And it would be his fault. Then the first raider ship turned and ran. Its engines flared blue as it accelerated toward the edge of the system. The second ship followed moments later, spinning wildly in its hurry to escape. The third ship hesitated for just a moment, then joined its companions in fleeing. Within 30 seconds, All three Wraith Raiders had vanished into hyperspace. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Lieutenant Jisoo began to laugh. It was a wild, relieved laugh that seemed to break whatever spell had fallen over the room. Other officers joined her. Someone was crying. Someone else was shouting in celebration. Captain Mireille slumped in her chair and let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. Begin rescue operations. Get medical teams to the Dawn's Hope immediately. I want every survivor off those damaged ships within the hour. Taiho stood at the back of the bridge, unable to move. His legs felt like water. His hands were shaking so badly that he had to grip a railing to stay upright. They had done it. They had actually done it. 400 people were going to live because of his idea. Admiral Ravan walked through the celebrating officers until he stood before Taiho. The giant Valari looked down at the young human with those strange compound eyes. You saved 400. And 12 Valari lives tonight. Cadet Taiho. Taiho shook his head. I just had an idea, sir. Everyone else made it work. Lieutenant Jisoo did the real magic. And your voice. That was what scared them away. No. Ravan's voice was absolute. It left no room for argument. Ideas without courage are worthless. You have both. He straightened to his full height and spoke loud enough for everyone on the bridge to hear. Among my people, there is an old tradition. When a warrior proves themselves in battle, regardless of rank or station, they earn a title that none may take from them. Taiho felt the air change. The celebration stopped. Everyone was watching. Kneel, Cadet Taiho. Taiho's legs were shaking as he lowered himself to the floor. He did not understand what was happening. He did not know what the Admiral was about to do. But he knew that his life was about to change forever. Admiral Ravan placed one heavy claw on Taiho's shoulder. The weight was enormous. It felt like the hand of fate itself. Rise, Commander Taiho. Commander. The word hung in the air like thunder after lightning. Taiho stayed on his knees, unable to move, unable to think. He must have heard wrong. The Admiral must have made a mistake. Sir? His voice came out as a whisper. Rise, Commander Taiho, Ravan repeated. There was no mistake in those words. No hesitation. The Admiral had spoken, and among the Valari, the word of an Admiral was law. Taiho stood slowly. His legs felt weak. The entire bridge was staring at him. Human officers. Valari delegates. Captain Mireille with her mouth hanging open in shock. Admiral, Mireille finally said, with all respect, this man is a cadet. He has no command experience. He has no formal training in leadership. He cannot be a commander. Ravan turned to face her. His compound eyes seemed to glow with an inner fire. He commanded tonight, did he not? He had an idea. That is different from command, is it? The Admiral walked toward Mireille with slow, heavy steps. Despite being one of the most powerful officers in the human fleet, she took a step backward. He saw a problem. He created a solution. He convinced others to follow his plan. He bore the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He knew that if he failed, people would die. And he did it anyway. Ravan stopped directly in front of Mireille's chair. That is command, Captain. Everything else is just paperwork. Mireille's face was red. Whether from anger or embarrassment, Taiho could not tell. Your titles mean nothing in the United Earth Navy. He is still a cadet under my authority. Your ranks mean nothing to me, Ravan replied calmly. But let me make something clear, Captain. Commander Taiho now holds a Valari battlefield commission. This is recognized by every fleet, every colony, and every government in the Dominion. When he speaks with my authority. My ships will follow his orders. My warriors will protect him with their lives. He turned back to Taiho. Do you understand what I have given you? Taiho shook his head slowly. No, sir. I do not think I do. Good. That means you are honest. Ravan made his strange laughing sound. Most people who seek power do not deserve it. Those who have power thrust upon them often deserve it most. The rescue operations continued around them. Medical teams rushed through the bridge on their way to shuttles. Officers shouted reports about survivors being pulled from the damaged ships. The convoy was being saved, one life at a time. But Taiho barely heard any of it. He was trying to understand what had just happened to him. 1 hour ago, he was nobody. A cadet fetching drinks at a diplomatic party. Now he held a title that made him equal to captains and commanders across an entire alien empire. Lieutenant Jisoo approached him carefully, like she was approaching a wild animal. Commander? She tried the word out. Are you all right? I do not know, Taiho admitted. I really do not know. Jisoo smiled. It was a warm smile. The first truly friendly expression anyone on this ship had ever given him. For what it is worth, I think you deserve it. What you did tonight. I've never seen anything like it. I just talked. You did the real work with the communication arrays. I push buttons. You convinced an alien warlord to lie for the first time in his life. Those are not the same thing. Over the next few hours, the full scale of their victory became clear. 412 Valari had been saved from the convoy. Only 37 had died before the horizon's edge arrived. Without Taiho's plan, all of them would have been killed or taken as slaves by the Wraith. The survivors were brought aboard the diplomatic ship. Valari of all ages filled the cargo bays and spare rooms. Children with bright shells ran through the corridors. Old warriors with scarred carapaces sat quietly and stared at the walls. Mothers held their young ones close and whispered thanks to gods that Taiho did not know. One young Valari, barely larger than a human child, approached Taiho while he was walking through the cargo bay. Her shell was pale blue, almost white. Her compound eyes were huge and filled with curiosity. Are you the one? She asked in broken human language. The one who saved us? Taiho knelt down to her level. Many people saved you. Not just me. Mother says you are a hero. She says your name will be remembered. Taiho did not know what to say to that. He had never been called a hero before. He had never been called anything before. What is your name? He asked instead. Valina. What is your name? Taiho. Taiho. She tried the word several times. I will remember your name forever, Taiho. Then she ran away to rejoin her mother, leaving Taiho alone with a strange feeling in his chest. The news spread faster than anyone expected. The Valari had their own communication networks, and within hours, the story of the convoy rescue was being told across the Dominion. A human cadet had devised a plan to save hundreds of Valari lives. Admiral Ravan himself had granted the human a battlefield commission. The reactions were mixed. Some Valari celebrated. They said it proved that humans could be trusted, that the alliance between their peoples was real and valuable. Others were angry. They said it was an insult to give a Valari title to a human, that Ravan had dishonored their traditions. On the human side, the response was even more complicated. The United Earth Navy did not know what to do with Taiho. He was still officially a cadet in their records. But the Valari considered him a commander with full authority. The political mess was enormous. Captain Myray called Taiho to her office 3 days after the rescue. He stood at attention before her desk, expecting anger, expecting punishment for stepping out of line. Instead, Myray just looked tired. Sit down, cadet. She paused. Commander, I do not even know what to call you anymore. Taiho sat carefully. Taiho is fine, Captain. I have been ordered to promote you to ensign, 3 ranks below the title the Valari gave you. Myre laughed bitterly. It is the most our Navy will do. The politicians are terrified of insulting the Dominion, but they also cannot accept that an alien empire can create human officers. I understand, Captain. Do you? Myre leaned forward. Do you understand that you have become a political symbol? That both humans and Velari will be watching everything you do? That if you fail, it will damage the alliance between our peoples? Taiho thought about the little Velari girl in the cargo bay, about her huge eyes and her promise to remember his name, about the 400 people who were alive because he had spoken up when everyone told him to stay quiet. I understand that I saved lives, he said quietly. Everything else is just politics. Myre stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, a smile crossed her face. It was small and reluctant, but it was real. You know, Cadet, I think I finally understand why the Admiral gave you that title. She stood up and offered her hand. Welcome to the officer ranks, Ensign Taiho, Commander Taiho, whatever you are. Taiho shook her hand. Thank you, Captain. Do not thank me yet. Your transfer orders came through this morning. You are being assigned to a new ship. A real warship this time, not a floating hotel. Where am I going? Myre handed him a datapad with his orders. The frontier. The same region where those Wraith Raiders came from. Apparently, someone in high command thinks you need to prove yourself again. Taiho looked at the orders. He thought about the Wraith, about their black ships and their cruelty, about the war that everyone knew was coming. Good, he said. I have more ideas. 3 months later, Taiho stood on the bridge of the destroyer Defiance and watched the stars blur past. He was still the lowest-ranked officer on the ship. He was still the youngest. He was still the one that everyone watched with suspicion or curiosity, but he was also Commander Taiho of the Velari Dominion, the man who had bluffed 3 Wraith Raiders with nothing but a lie and a legend, the man whose name was whispered in Velari temples and Wraith war rooms alike. And somewhere, in the dark spaces between stars, his enemies were learning to fear him. 2 years had passed since the night that changed everything. Taiho stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched the enemy fleet gather on the tactical display. 40 Wraith warships. 40. The largest invasion force the galaxy had seen in 100 years. They hung in space above the colony world of New Bizon like a cloud of death behind them. The planet glowed blue and green. 300,000 people lived down there. Human families and Velari settlers living together in the first joint colony of the Alliance. Children were playing in parks right now, not knowing that death was coming for them. Taiho had 12 ships. Commander. The Wraith fleet is holding position, reported Lieutenant Yunji, his tactical officer. She was older than Taiho by 5 years and had initially hated serving under someone younger. That hate had turned to respect over 2 years of battles and victories. Now she would follow him anywhere. They are waiting to see what we do, Taiho said. They expected to find the colony undefended. Finding us here has confused them. Lieutenant Jisoo sat at her communication station, just as she had on that first night aboard the Horizon's Edge. She had refused every other posting. Where Taiho went, she went. They were a team now. I am detecting communications between the Wraith ships, Jisoo reported. They are arguing. Some want to attack immediately. Others want to wait for reinforcements. Good, let them argue. Every minute they waste is a minute for the civilians to reach the shelters. The bridge was quiet and tense. Taiho's crew had fought beside him for 2 years. They had won battles that should have been impossible. They had survived traps and ambushes and desperate last stands. But they had never faced odds like this. 40-12. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Commander, Yunji said quietly, even with our victories, we cannot win this fight. Not conventionally, I know. Then what is your plan? Taiho looked at the tactical display for a long moment. He studied the enemy formation, the positions of the colony's defense platforms, the asteroid field on the edge of the system, the strange magnetic storms that surrounded the planet. Then he smiled. "We are going to cheat," he said. The crew exchanged glances. They had seen that smile before. It usually meant something impossible was about to happen. "Jizu, open a channel to the Wraith flagship. Let them know I want to talk." "Yes, Commander." The view screen flickered, and the face of the Wraith commander appeared. It was a terrible sight. The Wraith looked like skeletons wrapped in shadow. Their skin was gray and tight against their bones. Their eyes glowed with sickly green light. When they spoke, their voices sounded like grinding metal. "Human Commander," the Wraith said. "You are brave to contact us. Or perhaps just stupid. I wanted to give you a chance to surrender." Taiho replied calmly. The Wraith made a sound that might have been laughter. It was an ugly sound. "Surrender? We have 40 ships. You have 12. We will crush you like insects and feast on the screams of your colony." "You had 40 ships," Taiho corrected. "But I noticed that 6 of your vessels are positioned near the asteroid field." "That was a mistake." The Wraith commander's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Taiho nodded to Yunji. She pressed a button on her console. Deep in the asteroid field, hidden charges that Taiho had placed weeks ago detonated. The explosion sent massive rocks spinning through space at incredible speed. The 6 Wraith ships near the field had no time to react. Asteroids the size of buildings crashed through their hulls like fists through paper dot in less than 10 seconds. 6 Wraith ships became 6 clouds of burning debris. "You were saying?" Taiho asked politely. The Wraith commander screamed in rage. His skeletal face twisted with fury. "You will die for this, human. Attack! Attack now!" The channel closed. The remaining 34 Wraith ships surged forward. "Here they come," Yuji announced. "All enemy ships are advancing. Execute Plan Serpent," Taiho ordered. His 12 ships split into 3 groups. They did not fly toward the enemy. Instead, they scattered, flying toward different parts of the battle space. It looked like they were running away. It looked like cowardice. The Wraith thought so too. They spread out to chase the fleeing human and Volari ships. Their tight formation broke apart as each captain hunted for easy kills. That was exactly what Taiho wanted. "Now execute Plan Thunder." The 3 human and Volari groups suddenly reversed course. But they did not attack randomly. Each group targeted specific Wraith ships that had been identified as command vessels. In the chaos of the chase, the Wraith commanders had become separated from their escorts. Taiho's ships struck like lightning. Concentrated fire from multiple vessels tore through isolated Wraith warships. In the first exchange, 8 more enemy ships were destroyed. "Enemy formation is in complete disorder," Jisu reported. "They are trying to regroup, but they cannot coordinate." "Because we killed their command structure," Taiho said. "Jisu, broadcast false orders on Wraith frequencies. Tell them to retreat to different locations. Make them even more confused." Jisu grinned. She had become very good at this over the past 2 years. Her fingers danced across her console, sending fake messages that sounded exactly like Wraith commanders. Ships that were trying to regroup suddenly flew in opposite directions. Allies fired on allies by mistake. The battle became chaos. But it was controlled chaos. Taiho had planned every move. His ships danced through the confusion, striking vulnerable enemies and vanishing before the Wraith could respond. 2 hours later, the Wraith fleet was broken. 23 enemy ships destroyed. 11 captured when their crews surrendered. 6 fled into hyperspace to tell the tale of their defeat. Taiho had not lost a single ship. When Admiral Rivan's reinforcement fleet finally arrived, They found the battle already won. The Valari Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship and stared at the tactical reports with something like disbelief in his compound eyes. "This is impossible," he said to his officers. 40 ships against 12. No one could win those odds. "Commander Taiho did," one of his officers replied. Ravan was quiet for a long moment. Then he ordered his shuttle to fly to the Defiance. Taiho met the Admiral in the ship's docking bay. 2 years had not changed Ravan much. He was still massive, still terrifying, still the most feared warrior in the Valari Dominion. But the way he looked at Taiho had changed. "When I gave you that title," Ravan said slowly, "I thought I was rewarding a single moment of bravery. A young cadet who spoke when others were silent." Taiho waited. "I did not expect this." The Admiral gestured at a tactical display visible through a nearby window. It showed the remains of the Wraith fleet, scattered and broken. "I did not expect you to become this." "I am still learning, Admiral. Learning." Ravan made his laughing sound. "You just defeated an enemy 4 times your size without losing a single ship. What more do you need to learn? How to prevent the war from happening in the first place. How to protect people without having to kill. How to build peace instead of winning battles." Ravan's compound eyes studied Taiho for a long time. The Admiral had lived for centuries. He had seen warriors rise and fall. He had watched heroes become tyrants and cowards become legends. He thought he understood humans, but this young man continued to surprise him. "I named you commander as a gift," Ravan said finally. "A reward for your courage. Now I see that I was merely stating a fact. You were always a commander. You just needed a chance to prove it." He bowed. The Admiral of the Valari Dominion, conqueror of 12 systems, the end of all things, bowed to a young human who had been a cadet just 2 years ago. "Rise, Commander Taiho," Ravan said. "Wait, you are already standing. Then let me say something different." The Admiral straightened and looked Taiho directly in the eyes. "When historians write about this war, they will write about many battles. They will write about many heroes. But they will always return to this question. How did humanity become the most trusted ally of the Valari Dominion? How did 2 species so different in every way learn to fight and live together?" He placed his claw on Taiho's shoulder, just as he had on that first night aboard the Horizon's Edge. "The answer will always be the same." It began with a cadet who refused to stay silent. A young man who was too stubborn to be afraid. A commander that the galaxy never expected. Ravan smiled his alien smile. "It began with you." Years later, when the war ended and peace returned to the galaxy, historians did write about Commander Taiho. They wrote about his impossible victories and his brilliant strategies. They wrote about his friendship with Admiral Ravan and his role in building the Human-Valari alliance. But Taiho never cared much about history. He cared about people. About the families on New Bazan who lived because of his victory. About the Valari children who grew up without fear because humans stood beside them. About the future that was possible because different species learned to trust each other. On quiet nights, when he walked through the colonies he had helped protect, sometimes a child would run up to him. Human or Valari, it did not matter. They would look at him with wide eyes and ask the same question. "Are you really the commander? The one from the stories?" And Taiho would kneel down, just as he had with Lil Valina so many years ago, and he would smile. "I am just a man who had an idea once," he would say. And people were kind enough to listen. Then he would ruffle their hair or pat their shell and walk on.